Hello, I'm David and you're watching Cruise Show UK. When I embarked a fully sold out 18-night cruise to Hawaii on board Holland America's Koningsdam, I wasn't really sure what to expect. As someone who has been on 49 cruises with many different lines, I was surprised by some of the unique elements that made this cruise stand out. My first impressions. Embarkation and boarding the ship can be an exciting and memorable experience, but unfortunately my recent experience was quite the opposite. The lines for immigration and security were excessively long, causing significant delays and frustration. The wait to board the ship was also very long, with no refreshments or seating available for passengers. The lack of consideration for passengers with mobility issues was also evident, and there was no accommodations provided to assist them through the long lines and waiting areas. The overall experience was disappointing and left me with a negative first impression of the cruise line. I was underwhelmed by the atrium on board the Koningsdam. It lacked that wow factor. The atrium of a ship serves as the main focal point and central hub. It's the first area guests see upon boarding, and it sets the tone for the entire experience on board. A well-designed atrium can create a sense of grandeur, luxury and excitement, and this was missing on the Koningsdam. I was surprised that this wasn't improved during the April 2023 dry dock. Let's talk about the ship. The dining room was a masterpiece of design with a stunning centrepiece, a two-storey wine tower that serves as a striking focal point. I'll talk more about food shortly. The Lido Deck on Koningsdam was a standout feature of the ship. It's got a retractable glass roof and it made the space usable in both hot and cold climates, which was particularly useful during this sailing from Vancouver to Hawaii, where the temperatures varied significantly. The deck featured a variety of seating options, from loungers to tables and chairs, and it was the perfect spot to soak up the sun or enjoy a meal outdoors. My favourite place to eat on board, the diving, was also located on the Lido Deck, serving up delicious burgers, hot dogs and fries. The crow's nest on the Koningsdam was a disappointment for me. The space lacked character and felt like it was trying to be too many things at once. The combination of a coffee shop, a shore excursions desk, games area and a lounge made for an awkward and cluttered atmosphere. The seating arrangements were strange and uncomfortable, with no clear sense of purpose for each area, and it seemed though the space was trying to cater to too many different interests, and in doing so it's failed to create a cohesive and enjoyable environment for the passengers. Overall, the crow's nest was a missed opportunity to provide a comfortable and engaging social space on board the ship. My inside cabin. I have to admit I was a bit hesitant about booking an inside cabin for our cruise, but I have to say I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it really. The cabin was actually cosy and comfortable, and because it was located in the centre of the ship, I hardly felt any movement at all, which was a huge relief. Sure, there are no windows, but since I wasn't spending much time in the cabin anyway, it didn't really matter. And because it was the most affordable option, I was able to save some money by booking a private cabana in the retreat. More on that later. Overall, I have to say that booking an inside cabin was a great decision, and I would definitely consider it again for my next cruise. I have a tour available of my cabin. I'll link the video in the description below. During my cruise, I noticed that in certain common areas of the ship, the cleaning standards were poor really. For example, I still saw food and crumbs and debris on the floor in certain areas which remained there the next day. Anecdotally, I saw less personnel carrying out cleaning. The exception to this was the cleaning of my own cabin, which was vacuumed daily and the bathroom was always left gleaming. Maintenance. As a passenger taking the first cruise after a ship's dry dock, it's natural to expect the ship to be in top condition, with all the maintenance and repairs completed to the highest standards. However, during my own experience, I found that there were certain areas of the ship which still required attention. In particular, I noticed that certain pieces of furniture in common areas, such as the lounges and bars, were in need of replacement. Chairs with worn out upholstery or chip tables can detract from the aesthetic of the ship and make it seem less luxurious than expected. It seemed an easy fix, and I was really surprised this was overlooked. The food on board the Koningsdam was overall good and tasty, and I had some enjoyable experiences with dining on the ship. We opted for anytime dining, and as expected, on a sold out cruise there were often waits for tables. However, the crew dealt with this swiftly by giving us a pager, and we never waited more than 20 minutes for a table. The dive-in, located on the Lido Deck, was a personal favourite of mine, and the fries served there were out of this world, the best at sea. I was disappointed that it closed at 6 p.m. each evening, as sometimes it would have made a great casual dinner option. However, it was possible to order items from the dive-in menu from the 24-hour room service, but it does come at a charge of $4.95 per item, and the fries are not served with the room service, which is a deal breaker for me, really. The Grand Dutch Cafe was another great place for dining, and I often started my day there with a paid-for coffee and a free pastry item, such as a chocolate croissant. It was also an excellent spot for lunch, and I highly recommend the pea soup, which was an unexpected treat. However, I did find that sometimes the pastry items offered here weren't as fresh as I would have liked, and it felt like a batch had been cooked up to last for 4 to 5 days. While I enjoyed the food in the main dining room, I found the menus to be repetitive, and I struggled to find something of interest. But overall, the food on board the Koningsdam was enjoyable, and I had some great experiences with the dining, though there were a few areas for improvement. I have 2 videos about my food experience on the Koningsdam. I'll link the videos in the description below. As someone who loves trying new cocktails, the bar service on board the Koningsdam was a great experience. The pina colada I had on the ship was the best I've ever tasted. The cocktails were made with high quality ingredients and were well crafted, making every sip enjoyable. However, I did find the drink and wine menu selection a little bit disappointing, as the bar menus lacked inspiration for those looking to try something new. Nevertheless, if you knew what you wanted, the bartenders were always happy to oblige. Despite not finding some of the cruise cocktail staples, like a mudslide and BBC, on the menu, I was able to enjoy them by just asking the bartenders to make them for me. Overall, the bar service on the Koningsdam is a great experience, especially if you love cocktails. I opted for the Have It All package, which included drinks up to the value of $11. Holland America recently made a change that allowed customers to pay the difference if they wanted to order a drink above the $11 value. This was a welcome change, as it made upgrading to a premium drinks package less necessary. However, I find it strange that certain soft drinks were not included in the drinks package, such as drinks from the Coke freestyle machines or bottled water, even though they were well under the $11 value limit. This made the drinks package experience confusing at times, especially since the same was true for drinks from the minibar. Nonetheless, overall, the drinks package was still worth it, especially for those who enjoy a good cocktail or beer, and the flexibility to pay the difference for a more expensive drink. It was a nice touch. Before embarking on my cruise, I'd read on Cruise Critic that Holland America passengers preferred to dress up for formal nights. However, upon experiencing this for myself, I found this was definitely not the case. I packed my tuxedo and brought it with me on the trip, but it ended up being completely unnecessary. On the first formal night, or dressy night, I changed into my tuxedo. We went to a billboard on board on deck 2, where I immediately felt completely out of place amidst the fellow passengers who were dressed in shorts and trainers, all sorts really. It was around 7 p.m. and I assumed that those who had chosen to participate in formal night were either at the theatre or already at dinner. Nevertheless, I decided to stay in my formal attire, but overall it seemed that only 10, maybe 20% of passengers participated in the dressing up for formal night. My experience using the tender service on board the Koningsdam was slow and frustrating. The wait times for a tender were excessively long, and embarking and disembarking the tender took much longer than usual. It's likely due to the older demographic that Holland America attracts. It was clear that some passengers required additional assistance, which understandably slowed down the process, but the delays were still frustrating. I hope that in future the cruise line can improve the efficiency of this service to minimise the wait times and make the tender service smoother for everyone. I decided to treat myself to a cabana experience at the retreat. It's a private deck with 21 cabanas and can be purchased for an additional fee. As I had opted for the inside cabin, I was looking forward to having my own private outside deck space. I paid $699 for 18 nights and was pleasantly surprised by all the additional services that came with it. I wasn't expecting it. We were assigned a butler named Pablo, who went above and beyond to ensure our comfort. He provided us with complimentary fresh fruit, premium bottled water, and even took orders for lunch from any of the ship's restaurants. Every afternoon, Paolo brought us champagne and chocolate dipped strawberries, which was a really lovely touch. As it was colder closer to Vancouver, blankets and hot chocolate were available, making the experience even more enjoyable. Overall, I found the cabana service to be well worth the amount we paid, as it allowed me to escape the crowds and relax in a private space with a dedicated butler, which I loved, and all of the amenities needed for a comfortable, luxurious experience. This one really surprised me. The internet connectivity on a cruise ship can be complicated for several reasons. Mostly the ship is constantly moving, which means they must rely on satellite technology for its internet connection. It's inherently unreliable and slow, especially in poor weather, or when the ship is sailing in remote areas like the middle of the Pacific. Additionally, the number of passengers using the internet at any given time can impact the speed and quality of the connection. However, on board Koningsdam, I had a great experience with the internet. It was not only reliable and fast, but also great value. It was part of my have it all benefits. I had access to the basic internet package for the full length of the voyage, which provided consistent service even on the sea days. And although streaming websites like YouTube were blocked, I was able to use email, social media, messaging and general browsing at some of the fastest speeds I've experienced at sea. Overall, I was really impressed with the quality and the value of the internet on board the Koningsdam. I was impressed with the level of service provided by the staff. In fact, I would say that they were some of the happiest and most helpful staff I've encountered at sea. Not only did they go out of their way to make sure I was comfortable and had everything I needed, but they also provided in-depth information about the destinations. This was a refreshing change from other cruise lines where, some of the destination talks, they very often feel like thinly veiled sales pitches for Diamonds International. Instead, the staff on Koningsdam were genuinely interested in helping us make the most of our time in port, and I felt like they were a valuable resource throughout my trip. I only had one bad experience with a member of staff while on board the ship. It was in one of the specialty restaurants. To watch this and learn more about the food experience on board the Koningsdam, watch this video next. Until next time, I'll see you up on deck.